Welcome back to the Expressions of Destiny podcast, where faith, leadership, and purpose align. This is Jen, and I'm really glad you're here today. Over the past 2 weeks, we've been walking through a leadership conversation that is both practical and deeply personal. First, we talked about what happens when truth enters the room. Then, we explored the difference between feedback and fragility, and how leadership maturity is revealed in our response. Today, we're taking the next step, because once truth is entered and once feedback has been offered, leaders are often left with a critical question: who is aligned and who is simply agreeing? And even more importantly, do we know the difference? So I want to start with this today. Agreement is verbal. Resonance is internal. So I want y'all to understand, resonance is not agreement. I'm going to repeat that again for you. Resonance is not agreement. Agreement is verbal. Resonance is internal. Agreement often comes quickly. Resonance takes root quietly. Agreement says, I like this. But resonance says, this is true, even if it's uncomfortable. And one of the most important leadership lessons that you can learn is this: not everyone needs to agree with you for you to be aligned. In fact, some of the most meaningful growth you will ever experience will happen in spaces where not everyone is immediately on board, but where something deeper is stirring beneath the surface. Now, we're going to dig a lot deeper into that today, because the important thing that I want y'all to hear is just the beginning of what we're even discussing. It's knowing that not everyone may be on board with you right away in your positions, in your teams. If you're a leader, the people that are working with you, that are a part of your team, you may not have everyone on board. But the beautiful thing is that it's where something deeper is stirring beneath the surface, because we don't want people to just agree with us. We want them to align. And this is a reason why not everyone needs to agree, okay? Leaders who are still growing, they often look for consensus to feel secure. Let me give you some examples. They'll count nods, okay? Picture the boardroom or that meeting room, and you're meeting with your people, and you know, we thrive on seeing the head nods. We thrive on wanting to see the agreement that is there. They measure approval. And they scan the room for affirmation. And that is a big thing, because we all want to be affirmed in what we're doing. We all want to see the approval, receive the approval. We want to see the heads nodding. And we also go as far as to ask ourselves, do people like this? Does everyone agree with me? Am I being supported? And I understand that that's a big thing, because we want to feel like there is support within this community that we have, within this environment, this culture in our businesses, even in ministry. We want to feel like we have the support of our team, but we're looking at the wrong things. We're paying attention to those head nods. We're paying attention to that immediate, oh yes, absolutely, this is great, this is wonderful. That's the affirmation that we're looking for, but it goes deeper than that, because someone can nod their head and not agree with you. So I want you to understand that mature leaders, they understand something so much more deeper. That agreement is not the goal, alignment is. And that is very important to remember. The agreement is not the goal. The alignment is. Because agreement can be passive. Alignment is very intentional. People can agree with you and still disengage. People can agree with you and still resist growth. And people can agree with you and still avoid responsibility. Agreement doesn't require ownership. Alignment does. And this is where leadership gets very honest. Because agreement may make us feel affirmed, but alignment is what actually moves people forward. So I want us to jump in here and really talk about how alignment feels different than approval. Some of the things that we can focus on is approval will feel very reassuring. but it's fleeting. You know, what happens when it doesn't last very long? That approval and that reassurance, it's just not going to last. It's fleeting. It's just going to go within, a short amount of time. The agreement that you thought you had, all of a sudden, you're like, what happened? Where did it go? Where is this consensus that we had? It's just not going to last. But alignment will feel a lot more steady, even when it's quiet, even when people may not fully understand you, but they're trying to. Even when you may not understand your team members, the way that they think, the suggestions that they make, the conversations that are being had. It may be quiet. It may be awkward. But there's still alignment that is taking place. There is still something that is working in the background. It's not all surface based. Approval often sounds enthusiastic in the moment. Alignment will often show up in action over time. So it takes time, and we have to be patient with that. This is what alignment looks like. Alignment is people leaning in. They're not just nodding at everything that you say. They have very thoughtful engagement. They're not quick to praise everything. They're processing, they're thinking, they're really trying to absorb what is taking place, and that's okay. Reflection, this is what alignment looks like. Reflection, but not flattery. And another one is action, not applause. We're not quick to sit there and give praise and applause for everything, but we're ready to take action on some of the things that are being said. We're ready to ask questions. We learned in the last 2 weeks, questions are okay. It's okay to ask. It's okay to dive in deeper. It's okay to have that conversation. Sometimes alignment sounds like, I may need to sit with this for a little bit. Alignment may look like this, something that has challenged that individual. Or you may say, I don't fully have language yet, but this resonates with me. I don't quite know how to explain or how to get my thoughts out, but I understand there's something about what we are working on that we are being trained in, or whatever the situation may be within your company. As a leader, your employees, your teammates may be sitting there saying, it resonates. I feel something. I get it. I just don't quite know how to explain it. But let's do this. Let's work on it. And it takes time. And leaders who understand resonance, they don't rush to fill the silence. As a leader, you shouldn't be trying to overtalk and overspeak and overexplain and everything else. The silence is okay. Sit with it. Let your teammates sit with it. Don't panic when the room gets quiet. This is something that a leader will do when they understand resonance. A leader won't pressure people to respond quickly. They don't confuse stillness with rejection. They allow truth to do its work. Simply because resonance often needs space before it becomes visible. And something about resonance is it's often misunderstood because it's very subtle. It doesn't shout. It doesn't perform. It doesn't compete. A resonance, it just kind of hums beneath the surface. Very gentle, very soft. And here's a key insight for you. Resonance is often a sign of alignment with truth, not alignment with preference. When something resonates, it usually touches something deeper than opinion. It reaches into places like, let's just say, conviction. It'll reach into identity, into a person's calling, into growth, responsibility. And those things don't always feel comfortable. They are not the easiest places to be. And this is why leaders who only look for agreement, they often miss the deeper signal. Because resonance doesn't always look like excitement. Sometimes it may look like contemplation or conviction, or it looks like quiet clarity, just trying to understand. But when resonance is present, transformation is possible. So let's connect this back to where we've been. I want to go step kind of back into week 1 and week 2. In week 1, we talked about what happens when truth enters the room, how it often reveals what a system is not ready to face. In week 2, we explained feedback versus fragility and how immature leadership can mistake honesty for threat. So if you didn't have a chance to listen to those, I would highly encourage you to go back and listen to week 1 and week 2. But now in week 3, we're seeing what happens after that moment. Okay, talking about when truth enters the room, and feedback versus fragility. What happens now? Truth has been spoken. Feedback has been offered. Okay, that's week 1 and week 2. We spoke the truth. Feedback was offered, and reactions have been revealed. And now the question becomes, who is truly aligned with what is true, and who is simply agreeing to keep things comfortable? That is a very strong statement. And it's something that you really need to sit with and ask yourself. Because are you truly aligned? I'm just going to say it again. Are you truly aligned with what is true? You know, you've received that feedback. You've received that truth. You've sat and listened. You've sat in it. Or are you just simply agreeing to keep things comfortable? Because you don't like that confrontation. You don't want to have to react in a way. You're just willing to just sit in it and not do anything about it. And then you find yourself in this place where, are you really experiencing resonance? Are you experiencing alignment? You know, where are you in this? Because leadership rooted in faith doesn't depend on immediate validation. It really depends on discernment. So let's talk a little bit about discernment. From faith perspective, resonance matters deeply because God often confirms direction through alignment, not applause. Scripture reminds us that truth bears witness with our spirit. And that doesn't always look like excitement. Sometimes it'll look like stillness. Sometimes it'll look like conviction, quiet clarity. You know, we went over this already. This is just a reminder, a refresh. But it's going to look like that stillness, that conviction, that quiet clarity. And when God is leading, confirmation often comes internally before it ever shows up externally. Okay, we're going to experience this on the inside before we even see the manifestation of it on the outside of everything else that is going on. And leaders who walk with God, they learn to trust resonance even when agreement is incomplete. And the main reasons is because they know that what is true will take root where it belongs. What is meant to grow will eventually bear fruit. And what is aligned will naturally fall away. What is not aligned will naturally fall away. So if something is not aligned within your group, your team, the plan that you have, the process, the project, whatever it is, your business, your company, you know, the mission, the vision, what is not aligned will naturally fall away. It will remove itself. So let me ask you something, just to reflect on honestly. But when people don't immediately agree with you, do you assume resistance or do you allow space for resonance? You know, I think about these things all the time. Do we rush to convince people, or do you trust that truth will just settle? That's a really hard one because, you know, if someone disagrees with us, what is one of the first things that we do? We'll jump right in there. We'll try to explain to them. We'll try to convince them of our ways. We'll try to make them believe the way that we do. You know, our flesh kind of rises up and was like, well, what do you mean you don't understand or you don't agree with me? Let me explain it to you better. Let me tell you how this works. Maybe if you give me an opportunity to repeat myself. I've been there. I do that. I have done that. When someone doesn't quite understand, or I think they don't understand me, or they don't agree with me, and sometimes we'll stop and try to convince that person. But I've learned, in the past years, that it's better to just allow that person, that individual, to speak, not to rush to try to convince them, but to just let them talk, let them explain why it is that they feel the way that they do, what they may not agree with, and then I take that home with me, or wherever it is that I'm going, and I sit with it. I allow and I trust that truth to settle, because even though they don't agree with me, when I take time to pull away and to really think about what they shared with me and what they said, it's only then that I'm able to say, you know what, I can truly understand why they feel that way. I can understand why they think, the way that they do, or they processed it in a way. Maybe it was something that I didn't say the right way, not meaning say it in a way that is going to convince them, but maybe I just didn't explain it well enough, or maybe they just have a whole completely different, thought process, understanding. They may have a different idea that they want to share. They may have experienced something that worked better than what I am even presenting to them. And I have not taken time to listen to what it is that they have to offer, because I'm so caught up in what I'm trying to present, what I'm trying to get across, that I don't realize that's not the only way that things can be done. And so, you see, even though they didn't agree with me, or they pushed back on some things, I have to stop and really consider this conversation that just happened and think through it and process every bit of it, because that individual may actually be aligning with me and my business and my company and my team and the projects that we're doing, but they may just have a different idea that I've never considered. So you see, we take these moments to just really stop and absorb, and quit trying to rush to convince, our point of view, our plan. Do you need immediate affirmation? That's another thing to consider. Or are you confident enough to let alignment reveal itself over time? And this is what we just kind of talked about. Allowing that alignment to just reveal itself, to just come in the right timing. And so that understanding is there at the right time. Because leadership rooted in faith doesn't need instant validation. It trusts that what is true will take root where it belongs. It understands that clarity doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, and it changes everything. What a beautiful thought, right? To know that our patience and our willingness to just step back for a moment can really bring the positive change that is necessary, that we never even knew was there. So I want to take a moment. We're almost at the end of this episode. I'm not going to keep it too long today, but and we will have several more parts after this, so I encourage you to stay with us for the next coming weeks. But I really want to take a moment right now before we end to speak to the listener who may be feeling discouraged. And if you've been listening to Expressions of Destiny podcast for a while, you know my biggest gift and the biggest thing in my heart is to encourage people. Because yes, we may go through things, and yes, we have a bad day or several bad days. We may not have all the answers. We may not always know what to do, the right thing to do. But we're learning and we're growing. And so I want to take a moment, as I always do, just to speak to those of y'all who may be feeling discouraged. You know, if you've ever felt discouraged because not everyone agreed with you, if you've questioned your voice because approval felt limited, That can cause people to really step back and never speak up again. And that should not be the case. If you've ever wondered whether resonance was enough, I just want to remind you today, resonance is often quieter, but it is far more powerful than agreement. It points to alignment. It signals readiness. It reveals where truth is landing. And that matters more than consensus. Okay, that is so much more important than having the consensus of everybody in the room, everyone that is working with you. It's so much more important. You are not called to lead by popularity. Hear that. We're not looking for everybody in the room or the organization to stand up and applaud and to pat your back and stroke your ego and tell you that you are the best of everything that is going on. We do not lead by popularity. You are called to lead with purpose. You have a purpose in the place where you're at, no matter what your position or your title. You may be a leader, a business owner, you might be the manager, the CEO, the supervisor, or the teammate. The one that is a part of that team that is just pushing and working as hard as you can. It doesn't matter which position you are in. You are not called to lead by popularity. You are called to lead with purpose. And sometimes purpose moves ahead of comfort. And so I want to close with this. As we continue the series, I want to encourage you to lead with discernment. Don't chase agreement. Don't fear the silence. Don't continue or confuse. How do I say this best? Don't continue to confuse resistance with misalignment. There's going to be resistance. Listen for resonance. Trust the alignment that is taking place and allow truth to do what it was designed to do. Because leadership grounded in faith doesn't need everyone to agree. It needs the right people to align. So I want to thank you again for spending this time with me on the Expressions of Destiny podcast. I know we're covering a lot in these weeks past and the weeks to come. But it is so important that you understand your position and understand the position that you are in, the place where God has put you to be a light in a dark world, to be a light in an organization who needs you. And we may not know everything, and it takes time. But as we build upon this and as we learn, what is most important, then we can lead because of the purpose that we have. Because there is a mission that God has set forth for us to help and to serve in. And so if this episode resonated with you, feel free to share it with someone who may need it. And be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss what's coming next. We will be posting these episodes every single Monday. So until next time, keep living with intention, leading with faith, and walking boldly in your purpose. God bless.